everybody, and welcome to episode number 8 with the Both Sides Book Club.
Number 8, I can't wait!
You're with Catie and Debbie, and today we have the pleasure of discussing your first pick for the July books, which was
The Coconut Children by Vivian Pham.
I hope you all enjoyed the first pick as much as we did. This was actually for me a book I really connected with, and I really loved. So for any of you that haven't read this book yet, or you need a refresher, the book is set in Cabramatta in Sydney, Australia, and it is a story about a young girl called Sunny, and she has a teenage romance with a boy called Vince. Vince is a bit of a bad boy. It starts with him coming out of juvenile detention for 2 years, and Sunny just has this big crush on him. And the story sort of follows them reconnecting. They were childhood friends and falling in love, and it's very sweet.
It's very cute.
Yeah. The subcontext underneath that is actually about both of their parents were refugees that came across from Vietnam. They were boat people.
Yeah.
So you see a little bit of the trauma and just the experiences that they had gone through to get to Australia through their parenting and through their different relationships. So really good book. What did you think of it?
I loved it. I thought it was absolutely terrific.
Because you've recently been to Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, quite coincidentally,
Yeah.
we were in Vietnam and Cambodia in February this year. And that was actually the first time I'd ever been to Vietnam. And it was a real eye-opener. I loved it. Fantastic place to go and visit. I recommend it when we can travel again. But quite aside from the people and the food, which is what everybody always talks about.
Love me
about Vietnam. Exactly.
Love me Vietnamese food.
As you know, I'm a bit of a history buff.
Yeah.
And I guess because I grew up during the 70s and the 60s, 70s and 80s, the Vietnam War went on in the background, but it didn't.
Mum was in the UK,
and I grew up.
We immigrated to Australia.
And I grew up in the UK, so I was kind of aware of it. But I really had, I didn't really realise until I went to Vietnam what a false idea I had about actually what did happen. I had a very stereotypical view that the North Vietnamese were communists and they were bad, and the South Vietnamese were the American allies and they were good, and that it was this sort of black and white fight between communism and capitalism. And of course, that's not what happened at all. It was far more complicated than that. I guess visiting some of those historic sites in Vietnam and reading about what happened, and having done a little bit more reading on my own about what happened, then this absolutely resonated with me, because even after the Americans withdrew and the Australians withdrew and the South did fall to North Vietnam, the fighting still continued, and there were an awful lot of people in South Vietnam who got conscripted to go and fight against Cambodia, because we were looking at the rise of Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge at that time, and ultimately were persecuted and had to flee. Hence the boat people trying to come to the West. So I find it absolutely a fascinating account of.
Do you think it gave you more empathy for the families because you kind of understood a little bit more what they were escaping?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think just the horrors that the parents endured and the grandparents endured, how difficult it was to be on a boat, on a leaky boat fleeing, and then not to mention with pirates and being robbed.
Yeah, it's not even starvation and all of that.
Violence,
it's all the pirates
and to have no guarantee at the end that you're going to be accepted. I guess I guess it still applies, doesn't it, to people who are seeking refuge by coming. By fleeing on boats, but definitely, and that kind of, I guess it's similar to in the first book that we read, There Was Still Love, about where the grandparents had gone through the Second World War, and that immense trauma, it shapes you,
and shapes your family,
and shapes your family. So I had a huge amount of empathy for the two families.
On that note, I think it's talking about shaping your family, how when we were talking a little bit before we came on this episode, we were talking about this passage in the book where they remind me again what they say.
Sonny and Vince have a conversation, and Vince says, look, we've both grown up kind of like crossing
bilingually.
So our first language at home is Vietnamese, but everywhere else we speak English. So what does that make us? Where do we sit?
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I think the author was very clever in combining the two cultures together, because to me, when I was reading the book, it felt very, very Australian. Like the way that it was, the food and the snacks. I mean, not so necessarily the Vietnamese food, but the snacks that they're eating, and the going to the Macca's car park. And, it felt very, very Sydney, very Australian.
It felt very Sydney.
Yeah, but there was that beautiful, softer element to it, which was the Vietnamese, was the language and the way they described their food, and the different cultural differences. So I thought the author was very clever in combining the two together and really painting us a realistic picture of what Cabramatta is like, and or what it was like,
in the 80s.
In the 80s, 90s. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, how did you feel, talking about that split in culture, if you like, between the Sonny and Vince and the other teenagers growing up in Vietnamese households, yet being Australian teenagers? Obviously, they had to behave in a different way when they were at home, taking their shoes off at the door, for example. You never took your shoes off. And that element of respect, and the grandparents also living in the household. How did you feel about that?
I don't know. I didn't really think about it, because I just feel like it just so cleverly it depicted what I would imagine is a Vietnamese home. I mean, I think we all have different cultural backgrounds and different experiences in the home.
That's very true, isn't it? We all behave differently in the home.
Yeah, and I feel
in our parents' house to the way we do.
And I feel like
outdoors.
Even on the surface level, if I would go to a friend's house, I would probably behave differently to what I would if I was coming home as well. I think the cool thing about this book is Vivian Pham really encaptured being a teenager and what encompasses being a teenager. The way that they talk to each other versus the way that they come home and they're in their best behavior.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That didn't speak too much to me, because I just thought, well, that's what their culture must be like, and that's just how it is. But what I want to ask is did this book take you back to your teenage years?
Yeah, it did. It did. Obviously, the generations are different. So I wasn't a teenager in the late 80s, early 90s. But definitely, particularly when Sunny is together with her friend Najima, then totally, you know, that kind of like the gossiping about the boys and, oh, is he looking at me? Or, oh no, he is looking at me and he's definitely looking at me.
Yeah.
Or the, you know, or the daydreaming.
Yeah.
I mean, in my day, we had kind of like big posters up on our bedroom wall of we couldn't look at on our phone.
Yeah.
And
celebrity crush or whatever.
Yeah, stalk our celebrities. So you know, you would run out and you would go and buy the magazines that had stories about you know, whoever you were crushing on and stuff. And I guess also just kind of like how difficult it is being a teenager, like the embarrassment of so much. Mm-hmm. And things like, you know, if you didn't want to do sports, and, you know, trying to get out of things or having crushes on your teachers, even though they were definitely not crush-worthy, then what about you?
Oh yeah, I don't know whether it is. So Vivian Pham, when she wrote this novel, she was when she started writing this novel, she was actually 16, which is amazing.
She's only 19 now, by the way.
Yeah. Which, you know, is incredible. But I feel like it is so raw, teenage, like it is just so teenage. I feel like a lot of the time, authors that are adults that are writing about from a teenage perspective, it can often be like not jaded, but
you have that distance, don't you?
It's a little. You can feel the distance because you know, whether we realize it or not, we have had adult, or you know, we've grown up in different ways, so our memories of being a teenager are a little bit skewed. Whereas when you read this book, it was so like, I just felt like I was taken back to being 15, sitting there,
well, I mean,
giggling with them, you know.
Yeah, but it's not childish.
No, because I think that's a misconception about teenagers. Is like, you know, and I think that's what happens is when you're an adult, you look at teenagers and go, oh, they're so childish. But actually, when you're a teenager, you feel like you're so adult and you feel like you're so aware and like you know,
you pick up on a
lot more
on a lot.
And I think it's that classic example of when you're an adult, you look back at kids and go, oh, you know, if they're 8 years old, they couldn't possibly have thought this, or if they were 15, they couldn't possibly have you know, had a crush to that extent or had that much awareness about what's going on in their family or whatever. But you actually are so aware.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely true what you were saying. But when I said it's not childish, what I was actually referring to is the writing isn't childish.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And I think it's refreshingly young, as you say. I mean, you can definitely feel and hear the teenager in there, but it also doesn't feel like you're reading a teenage book either. No, exactly. It's not a young adult book.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that part of the way that Vivian manages to do that is her descriptions, which are slightly over the top, if you will, in that they are, you know, quite flowery and there are lots of adjectives. But
I think it works.
In other writing, then I think you would say that is almost like overdone.
Yeah.
But I think it works brilliantly in here. And I think maybe because the character of Sunny, because she does think a lot, she spends a lot of time observing other people. So we kind of see it through her eyes, and she's obviously very clever, and she reads. So you are kind of seeing it through her vocabulary.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think as well how she always escapes to the trampoline and sits there, and you know, that is the world of a teenager. You don't have quite as much going on in your mind, and your sphere of the world isn't quite as broad. Although you're still very aware of everything that's going on, but you still have that imaginary play that you know, the stuff that makes you giggle and crush on school teachers, and like the stuff that makes you zone out and look at like the pretty things or the sky or the leaves or whatever. It takes you away. Because not to say that you don't have lots on your plate, because there are, you know, teenagers that do have a lot on their plate, but your brain still kind of takes you to that like daydreamy state that we often don't, as adults, don't allow ourselves to get into that. Yeah. So I think that's why it really worked, because I just felt so like I was a teenager again. It was it was so nice.
Well, I actually wanted to, because we talked a little bit. You know, I've talked a little bit about Sonny, and Vince obviously is the other main character in the book, and I guess you know, we see him. I actually kind of almost see him as Danny in Greece, but a kind of like a Vietnamese version of it. You know, true. Physically just beautiful and acutely aware of how he looks and his hair and wearing his singlet and kind of like stuff. And obviously we see him through. He is adored and admired by all of the kids, and actually a lot of the adults. You know, think he's pretty good, but he's fallen by the wayside. He's just come out of juvie. As the book progresses, we find out that, you know, his father was violent towards his mother, and so he's sort of, you know, been following the wrong people. When do you think the catalyst, or what do you think the catalyst is for him to come right, for him to find his way back from the path that he's on?
I feel like Vince just carries a big burden. He just carries a lot of weight. I don't believe he's a bad guy, or I just think he is carrying a lot of weight and a lot of pressure, and carrying his mother's hurt without realizing that's what he's doing. And I feel like he's just reacting and responding because he doesn't know how to carry what he's trying. Like, I feel like he's very protective over the people in his life, but he doesn't know how to harness that. So I think probably the first time you start to see him drop down his guard is when he meets his little sister for the first time, baby sister, and you can see, you know, he melts a little bit and he softens. But I really believe that it's when he starts to remember Sonny. I really feel like that's when he remembers who he is, because I think in some ways, although his little sister is his, he's still got that protective acting out of fear, because he doesn't want his dad to hurt her, or you know, every time he goes over there, he's still feeling like he has to be the protector of the family. Whereas with Sonny, it's he can let his guard down, and even though he is somewhat protective over Sonny, especially with Sonny's relationship with her mum, he softens, and for the first time, I think he starts to stop to smell the roses and to like go and pick flowers and enjoy.
Didn't you just love that scene where he comes in, where he rescues the grandmother and comes home to Sonny's house for dinner, which is basically what Sonny has been dreaming about and planning, and she can't say a word. She totally froze. Didn't you just love that?
Yeah. It was so true. It was so cute. But I reckon that's the moment when he starts to remember her and realizes that there's something in the world for him as well. It's not just his role isn't just to protect or to be this. And I think that's part of why I feel like it's not an uncommon story when you see particularly in the guys that, if they're carrying a lot of a heavy load or a heavy burden or they don't know how, they're wrestling with some sort of level of anger or hurt, that they resort to being, macho and being the...
Not a bravado.
And being the leader and ringing up the boys and whatever. So I think that's the first time you start to see that he doesn't need that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are subtle signs, aren't there? When Michelle, the perfect girl, is at the part,
flicking her hair,
flicking her perfect hair, but he's actually not interested.
Yeah.
And when he chooses
didn't we all have a Michelle?
Yeah, totally.
You're like, oh.
Totally, and always with the perfect blow dried hair.
Exactly.
When he chooses not, he parties with the boys, yes, but sometimes he chooses not to have that, that quiet time. And he befriends Oscar, and he's so nice to.
I know when they have
him.
the canteen picnic, I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
Which is really, really sweet. So, I mean, I think those signs are there all along, aren't they? But it needed something, a call to action, didn't it?
Yeah.
Because it would have been so easy for him just to have been swept along by peer pressure and to have continued, having been written off by the school and having, a record, to have just, continued down that path.
I think the bigger, if we're talking about themes in books and things that stand out, I think the thing that stands out in this book is just, when you're a teenager, you aren't aware of exactly what your parents have gone through or are going through. No. You're all still relative to your own world. And I think that's what Vivian did very cleverly, is that she had, although we heard a little bit about, her Sunny and Oscar's mum was so angry and filled with so much hate and short-tempered and stuff. And then you see, Vince's dad, who is obviously so hurt and traumatized but he just presents as being a drunken wife beater. But on the surface, he is still struggling that his wife got raped, and there's so many heavy things that have happened to each of their families and to so many other families. Yeah. But yet you're still in a teenage world. You're not, all you're thinking about is boys and crushes and whatever. Yeah. I mean, they're very solipsistic in that the world revolves, like the sun revolves around you. Yeah, but not in a selfish way. But not in a selfish way. But that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. It's only hindsight that you get when you're older and you're like, man, I stuffed up when I said that. I didn't realise. Yeah. I mean, I actually just sort of going back to that, and to Sunny's mum, because I mean, how difficult must that have been to have been just treading on eggshells the whole time? Oh yeah. Not knowing what mood she was going to be in, or how they should. How navigate. She and us navigate that whole sort of thing. But I mean, what do you think I can't actually remember if it's Sunny or whether it's her mum that muses that, that my job is just to protect you and to provide for you, is that that is what my role is. It's not to be happy for myself. It's not even to love you, quite frankly. It's to be there and to protect you. Is that how you see kind of like the role of parenthood? Put you on the spot here. No, you better love me too. No, I I don't know. I'm not a mum, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I expect. I think I'm going to try and answer this properly. I feel like when you're a teenager, I think you get used to expecting that you're going to get fed and that there's always going to be food. And like, I mean, for some people, I mean, that sounds, everybody's got their different...
Very privileged.
No, that does. For me and my experience and what I took for granted. But I feel like I was also really aware to some extent, like, what was going on in your world as well. So I think to some extent as a child, you do have some sort of level of expectation on your parents that they're going to look after you and that they're going to be there for you. But I felt like I was also, I also had a unique experience that I realized not to take that for complete granted either. Because, everybody has different things and parents have different walks of path, so
different paths to tread.
But different paths to tread, and sometimes it does end up you having to deal with your parents' trauma as well to some extent. So no, I don't think I think to some level all kids kind of, because that's what you're taught. Your parents are going to be there for you, but I don't think that's, I think more importantly it was just to know that you always loved me and had my back no matter what. I think that was more what I hoped and counted on more than always being... Do you know what... Is that what you're...
You put me on the spot. I know, I did put you on the spot. But I do, I just think it's very, very interesting reading about, different parenting styles. And I guess, with parents that are so... The mothers I'm talking about particularly, because obviously I can't speak about being a father, that their early life, that they were so traumatized, but they had their children, and so they largely internalized all of the things that happened to them, and it comes out as angry love. It comes out...
I think there is a lot of subtleties, though, that when you grow up with your parents, that even though, they could be really angry one day or, angry all the time or not, or withdrawn all the time or busy all the time or whatever your parents' situation is, I think, I just speak from my experience, is that you can feel that they love you still no matter what. Like, there's this some weird biological thing that, like, deep down, wherever it is, even if you're not feeling it, even if they're so angry all the time or whatever, you still kind of know, like...
And that's true, isn't it, in the book.
You still, as a child, I think, have this level of loyalty.
Exactly. And Sunny kind of did know that her mother, loved her, and Vince knew that his mother loved her. Interestingly, I don't know if you guys have read a little bit about Vivian's backstory, but her father was a boat refugee.
Yeah, boat refugee.
And she obviously has a very, very close relationship with her father. And I think kind of like the tenderness of that comes across, doesn't it, in Sunny's relationship with her father.
Yeah, I think so. I think you can feel that the warmth there. Yeah. So, yeah, I really liked it. When you finished this book, where did it leave you? Did you want more?
I did. I kind of definitely. I think I would like more of their story. So, Vivian, if you'd like to write a sequel, then that would be good. Thank you. We would like that.
Yeah, I wanted to know what happened next. I felt like Sunny and Vince's story hadn't finished.
No,
there was still more, and I don't know whether that's immediately or if it's 10 years from now.
Yeah,
I just felt like there needed it. I felt like it was the start of a brilliant series.
I agree. And also, I think I would like to see it dramatised.
Yeah.
Because, I think Vivian captured the sights and the smells of suburbia, of suburban Sydney so well that I think it would make a really, really good either TV series or a movie.
Awesome. So thank you, everybody, for picking The Coconut Children. Brilliant first pick. And
we hope you enjoyed it too.
Yeah, we definitely hoped you enjoyed it too, seeing as you picked it. Now, we're actually about to announce your second pick of the July books. So take it away.
So your second pick for July is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare. So I've actually already read this. You haven't yet. So a little bit about the story. It's set in Nigeria, and it's the story of Adani, who is a 14-year-old girl whose mother has died. And her family's fallen on hard times. So for a significant dowry, she is passed on to as the third wife of an older taxi driver who's living in the village. Against her will. And she doesn't stay a wife for terribly long. A whole series of events lead her to Lagos, the capital of Nigeria, where eventually she finds a louding voice.
Ooh, that gave me goosebumps.
So, we hope that you enjoy it.
Amazing. So thank you, everybody, for listening in, and we can't wait to hear what you all think about your next pick. So happy reading, and we'll see you soon.
We hope you enjoyed watching this episode.
If you did, please leave us a comment below. We'll see you soon.